Hi, this is Brandon from Talk Tech back here again with another video. All right, so today I wanted to go ahead and cover installing a virtual machine inside of using KVM and QEMU. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that I covered in this video was hypervisors themselves. I did kind of cover KVM and QEMU in the previous video, but I didn't really touch on what exactly a hypervisor is. And keep in mind, there's tons of videos out there if you want more in-depth information, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a little summary here. So basically what a hypervisor is, it's an application used to create and run virtual machines. There's actually two types of hypervisors. You have type 1, which is going to run on the physical hardware itself. This is going to be something like Proxmox or VMware's EXSI, I think is what it's called. The other type is going to be a type 2, which runs on top of an actual operating system. You know, think of VirtualBox or VMware Player, I think is what their client is. And we're using QEMU KVM. Now, depending on the deployment, it can kind of be between a type 1 and a type 2 hypervisor, depending on how you have the system set up. The current setup that I have is actually just running on just Ubuntu 22.04.1. So the way that I see it is I see that my current deployment is QEMU KVM is as a type 2 hypervisor. But say if this box was solely dedicated to being a virtualization platform, then in that case I would refer to it as a type 1 hypervisor. And keep in mind, this is my interpretation of it, and others might interpret that differently, and that's okay. So cool. Let's go ahead and kind of cover some setup of the setup process of a VM. The first thing that we want to go ahead and do is confirm that we have VIR BR0 present with our IP interfaces. So let's go ahead and issue an IP address command. All right, and we have it right here, VIR BR0. And we can actually already see that it's got an IP address, and I'll cover that here in just a second. Now, if you don't see it present, or it does not have an IP address associated with it, what you'll want to do is you'll want to use this command versh net start default, and then do an and then versh net auto start. I'm sorry. A net auto start default. And what this will do is this will actually go ahead and start up that default network, because it should get installed by default typically on most distributions. So go ahead and run this command if it doesn't. See, mine, it's already started, and it's already auto started. And if you really wanted to kind of get the details on it, you could do a net list. Versh net list. All right, there we go. And see, we can already see that it's persistent. It is auto started, and it's currently active. All right, if it's not present, if it's not present at all, and I'm sorry, and I should have clarified, using those commands is if the interface is present but the IP address is not there. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't see the interface at all, the configuration file is already there. It just basically needs to be defined or set up, if you will. So for that command, what you would do is you would just do versh net define, and then we do user share libvirt networks, and then default.xml. And it's going to fail in my particular case because the operation is already, the network is already there. So that's why you're seeing it failing in my particular case. And then, of course, to make sure that it starts and auto starts, is you would go ahead and run those same commands that we previously ran, which is versh net start default and versh net auto start default. One of the things that you can do to kind of keep things organized is you can actually create an ISO folder, which is going to be a place where you can stash all of your ISO. So let's go ahead. One of the things that I like to do is actually make an ISO folder inside of the actual images directory. And the images directory is where the actual virtual machine images are kept by default. So let me go ahead and just get us over to that directory. Whoops. You know what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to go into root. Just because some of this stuff can be a little bit easier when you're actually as root. All right, so let's go ahead and get ourselves over there. Var lib vert images. All right, let's do an ls. And I've actually already created it, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just do we're going to remove, whoops, let's go ahead and issue an rmr. And, and if you're not familiar with the rm command, that's the way you remove files and directories. But since it's a directory, we need to make sure that we put the r there for recursive to actually be able to remove that directory. So there we go. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create this this directory with mkdir. Mkdir just stands for make directory. It's going to create a directory which is the equivalent of a folder inside of Windows. If you're more familiar with that environment, is we just do mkdir iso. Now, what you would want to make sure to do is if you were running as just a non-privileged user, is you would want to make sure that you set the permissions appropriately. Now, if we look here, ours is already set with effective permissions. It's got everything for the owner, the group, and then the group has execute, and then read and execute, and so does the others group. So if you're setting this up for on your own system, you want to make sure that it's set by root, it's owned by root, and that the permissions are 700 is where you want them to be. So, and we're not going to cover that. If that's something that you'd like in a future video, please feel free to leave a comment down below and just let me know. I want to kind of stay focused here on installing a VM. Now, the next thing that you may need to do as well, depending on how things are, like if you're adding this directories, you're going to need to define or set up that that directory. So what you're going to do for that is you're going to do a versh. You're going to do pool define as. All right, and then we'll do a pool name, and we're just going to call this ISO. All right, and then we're going to set it up as the type directory, which is what this dir is for, and then we're going to set a target. And we're going to target, and we'll do var lib vert images ISO. Let's just go over here and fix this. Yep, and yeah, see in here we've actually, hold on. Yeah, and see, I've actually already set up a an ISO, the ISO pool. So the other thing that you'd have to do is if you're setting it up for the first time, is you'll have to issue a versh and then pool start, and then we can just do, what was it? What did I have it saved as? I think it was ISO pool. All right, so perfect, that started. And then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and just do a versh pool list. Perfect, and we've got the that ISO pool there. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just do a versh pool auto start, and then we'll do an ISO pool. Perfect, cool. And we'll just issue that one more time, that versh pool list, which is how you'll actually see your active pools. And if you want to see all of them, even including the ones that are not active, just give it a double tack all. And there we go. So we've got those there. All right, cool. So now we're ready to start installing the virtual machine. So the next thing that we're going to have to go do is we're going to have to make sure that we get an ISO image of the operating system that we want to install. So let's go ahead and cd over to the ISO folder. And we're going to do two things here. All right, we're going to do a wget. We're going to do tac capital O, which is to go ahead and give this file a name. We're just going to call it pep.iso. And we'll go ahead and paste in the link. And this will take, looks like it's got it estimated around 40 seconds. So it will take a little bit of time to go ahead and download the file. And basically what Wget is, it's a utility for, you can use to make, HTTP queries and other types of protocols. Basically what we're using it for here is we're going out, we're saying like, hey, website, send me this. So we make that request out to the website gets it, it's like, oh, cool, I got this, yeah, and it go ahead and sends it back to us, and which is what is happening right now. So we're going to download two things. We're going to download the ISO image, and we're also going to download the checksum file. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's just do another wget, and we're going to do that one, oh. We're just going to do this one as pep sha. I think is it what 512. And we'll go do that. This one should be super quick. Perfect. There we go. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to do a sha 512 sum. And we're going to put that out to a file called let's just go pep 512. And essentially what this, oops, actually, hold on. We got to do this right here. I apologize about that. Let's go ahead and go over here. And what is this file called? Oh, it's called Peppermint. What, do we call it anything? Oh, you know what? It might be as download. Let's see here. Let's see what I have it saved as in this file. Oh yeah, pep sha 512. Okay, there we go. All right, so then we'll do a sha 512 sum. All right, then we're going to do that of the pep 512. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to output that to a file called, actually, hold on. Yeah, we'll just do that one to 512, pep 512. Actually, hold on, what did I do here? Hold on. Give me just a second here. I've got myself a little turnaround here, folks. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So let's go back here. We'll do that one to pep 512. And we're going to do this one to pep.iso. And essentially what we're doing here is with this sha 512 sum is we're basically doing a sha 512 hash of the file to be able to go ahead and compare it to the checksum file we just downloaded to make sure that the image is indeed correct. And I highly encourage you to do this to make sure that, like, because a lot of these distributors, they use different platforms for hosting these images, and you're not always going to be getting it directly from the provider. So it's always a really good idea to go ahead and check the checksum. Some of them will use 256. 512 is also another one. Just depends on the distribution. And what we can do here is we can do what's called a diff command, and then we'll do a pep 512 and a pep .iso, and yeah, see, and here we go. We ran a diff command, which is basically looking for differences, and it's not really finding any different. It does say that they do differ, but it would list the differences that are present. So we know that in this particular case that the sha 512 for both of them is actually correct. All right, so okay. So the next thing that we want to go ahead and do is we want to go ahead and start doing a install of the virtual machine using the command line. So what we're going to do for what we're going to use for that process, we're going to do a vert install. All right, and the next thing is going to be connect. It's going to be tac connect, and we're going to set that to QEMU. We're going to do a dot, and we're going to do three forward slashes. All right, and then we're going to do system. Now, we're doing this is because the reason that we're using the connect option is because we want to go ahead and set the permissions that the virtual machine is going to run at. Now, you have two options when you're setting the permissions that the virtual machine is going to run at. It will either be system, or the other option is going to be session. The difference between those two is that system is basically giving it root privileges, which can make it so much easier to use. You're not constantly having to give it permissions, or things aren't functioning properly. You don't have to go in there and go into Polkit and making adjustments to be able to run other aspects of the virtual operating system. So this will allow us to just make life so much easier. The other option is it's going to be session, which will run with whatever privileges the person who's running the virtual machine, whatever permissions they have. So the next thing that we want to go ahead and do is we want to do it's called Vert Type. Vert Type is just there's multiple different types of hypervisors that are associated with Vert install. So this allows you to select the specific one. There's there's QEMU, there's KVM, there is LXC. I think there's at least one or two more that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But we're going to be typing KVM here, and then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give it a name. All right, with tac name, we're going to just call this Peppermint. All right, and then after that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do disk. And then we'll do path. All right, and we're going to do a var lib vert images. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call this one peppermint dot qcow 2. All right, and then we're going to do a comma, and then we're going to do 15, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do size 15. All right, and then what we'll do next is we're going to go ahead and select graphics. And this is the reason we're setting graphics is because we want to make sure that we're able to view we want to be able to interact with our virtual machine using graphical user interface. So we're going to use the Spice server. All right, then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give it some CPU cores. Now this is going to be solely up to yourself how many you want to allocate for it to it. I'm going to go ahead and just select one. Then we're going to do tac memory, and this is going to give it memory. We're putting it in megabytes, so we're going to give it 2048, which is the equivalent of 2 gigabytes. All right, and then we're going to do CD-ROM. And then basically what we're doing with CD-ROM is that we're going ahead and selecting where our actual ISO image is. So that's going to be var libvirt images ISO. And then it's going to be, what did we have it saved as? pep.iso. All right, so we got that there. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the network. We're going to set bridge equals vir br0. All right, and we're going to set OS info. Depending on your distribution, this last one will vary from distribution to distribution. So some of them it requires it, like on just vanilla Debian it does not, but in Ubuntu it does. So just be mindful of that. All right, and this one is a Debian. Just gonna go with Debian 11. All right, cool. So I think we've got everything in there that we need. It will give us any errors if we did anything wrong. So let's go ahead and see if we nailed it. I nailed it the first time. Okay, so then you see right there it says unknown OS name. I think it's just Debian 11 like that. There we go. All right, so if you run into this situation where it says domain is still running, installation may be in progress, what you're going to do is you can go ahead and open up a different window, and we can do a Vert ViewViewer Peppermint. All right, and that will go, you'll do, sorry about that silence there. It's going to be VertViewer, then Peppermint, which is the name of our virtual machine. And then we can see here that we've got the actual, install options here. So we'll just go ahead and just do a Peppermint. And then what you would do is you would actually go ahead and go through the actual install process in order to be able to go ahead and get it installed, just like you would on bare metal or VirtualBox or any of the other hypervisors that are out there now. Let me just see if I covered everything here. Let me go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm not going to show you the install process. That's something that you can do on your own. So let's go ahead and go back here, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to let me go ahead and we'll work out of this one. That's fine. All right, so then let's go ahead and just make sure I covered everything here. So there's a couple other things that I just wanted to go ahead and clear up here for you. Now, the location that you've seen me using, which is var libvirt images, is created by default for storage. That's where all of your VM images are gonna be able to be saved at by default. If you're in the libvirt group, you'll be able to go ahead and save them there and all that kind of stuff. You can change that location. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video, but that is something that I could always go through if you wanted that in the future. So just leave me a comment below and let me know. One of the easiest ways to do that is you can actually just go to the actual XML file and make the adjustment yourself there. Is you could just do, what is it? I think it's verse domain. No. You know what? Yeah, we'll not go into that one, but what you would do is you would basically go into the configuration file for it, which is an XML file, and you would actually make it there. You'd just change the path variable. You know what? Let me see here. Actually, we could probably do this. Verse. I can't remember what the command is off the top of my head, so we'll actually. Let me see here. Let's just do a verse list. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and leave it there for now. But yeah, you would actually just update the path variable, and then you saw me using the QCOW extension there. QCOW just stands for QEMU copy on write. It just allows you to save, allow you to basically use the disk image as it wouldn't fill up until you actually start using it, which is kind of the way that like VirtualBox does. Now it's already set aside inside of the folder, but then it's not going to be allocated until it's actually allocated on the virtual machine. And that's the difference, because typically you're going to have two options. You're either going to have a raw option or the QCOW option, and the raw option is it's basically, if you put 10 gigs, it's going to be 10 gigs. With QCOW 2, it's going to be it's 10 gigs, but if you've only used 5 gigs, it's only going to be 5 gigs. Now, the graphics options that you do have, if you wanted to use any other option, it would be either VNC or none if you just wanted to run a headless setup. You can always check the bridge adapter name using IP address, which we did at the beginning of the video. And then you can get a list of OS descriptions using vert install OS info list. And that'll actually give you all of them right here. You can go through that. I would highly encourage you to grep the output. There we go, and that's just Debian right there. That'll make it easier to digest. All right, and then as you saw, like once the command is executed, it will have you go through the install process as if you were installing it on bare metal. And then that VertViewer kind of workaround there is if it doesn't automatically pop up. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just kind of depends on how on various factors. So that's the way that you can get around it. So okay, cool. All right, well, great. That's how you install a virtual machine using QEMU, KVM. So if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Let me know if you have any comments, feedback down in the comments. And if there is nothing else, I thank you very much for watching my video and have a great rest of the day.